My fiancée yelled, "You're nothing without me." I said, "We'll see." Then I quit my job, started a business, and cut all contact. A year later, she showed up at my office crying in front of my wife. I, 32M, always thought my life was on the right track. I had a good job in marketing at a major beverage company, a nice apartment I co-signed with my fiancée, Nicole, 29F, and a wedding on the horizon. We'd been together 5 years, engaged for 1. I saw a future. What I didn't see was that in her eyes, I wasn't a partner in that future. I was an accessory she thought she owned. The whole thing blew up during an argument about wedding costs. Nicole's family has serious money, and her father, Gregory, is a senior VP at the company where I worked. He got me the interview years ago, a fact he never let me forget. I was grateful for the opportunity, but I earned every promotion and bonus through my own merit, often working longer hours than anyone on my team. I wasn't riding his coattails, I was proving my worth. We were looking over the wedding budget, and the numbers were astronomical. I pointed out that my contribution was ballooning past what we'd agreed upon. I had a substantial savings fund, money I'd built from my salary, and a small inheritance from my grandmother that I'd invested years ago. I'd earmarked most of it for a down payment on a house, not for a one-day party designed to impress her parents' friends. "I think we need to scale back on some of the non-essentials," I said calmly. "The floral arrangements alone cost more than my car. Do we really need an 8-piece band and a DJ?" Nicole looked at me as if I'd suggested serving gas station hot dogs at the reception. "Scale back? Brandon, don't be embarrassing. My parents are covering the venue and the caterer. The rest is for us to handle." "I know, but the rest has become a monster," I countered. "This isn't about being cheap, it's about being financially responsible as we start our lives." That's when the mask didn't just slip, it was ripped off. Her face hardened into a sneer I'd never seen before. "Brandon, let's be realistic. Your salary is fine for paying your bills, but it's a rounding error in my family's world. It doesn't give you a vote. Your contribution is a sweet gesture, but it's insignificant. You should just be grateful you're marrying into this. Without me, without my father, you're nothing. He gave you a respectable career. I gave you a life you couldn't have dreamed of. What were you before me? A guy in a shared rental with college buddies." I just stared at her. The air left my lungs. Every passive-aggressive comment, every time she'd corrected me in public, every joke about my background, it all sharpened into a single, painful point. She didn't respect me. She saw me as a project she'd picked up. I didn't shout, I didn't argue. A strange, cold clarity washed over me. The love I felt for her evaporated in that instant, replaced by a profound sense of finality. "We'll see," I said quietly. I stood up, walked into our bedroom, and pulled out a duffel bag. Nicole followed, her tone shifting from arrogant to incredulous, then to frantic. "What are you doing? Don't be so dramatic. You can't seriously be leaving over this. I didn't mean it like that." But she did. Every word was a stone she'd been waiting to throw. I packed what I needed and walked out of the apartment we shared. The next morning, I went to my office, bypassed my direct manager, and went straight to HR to tender my resignation. My boss was floored. Within the hour, I was summoned to Gregory's office. He tried the disappointed father figure angle, talking about pre-wedding nerves. I held my ground, stating I was leaving to pursue an independent venture. His demeanor turned icy. He reminded me of his influence, of the golden path I was foolishly paving over. I simply thanked him for the initial opportunity and walked away. The first thing I did was execute a clean break. I blocked Nicole, her parents, her friends, everyone. I was able to get my name off our apartment lease by paying a hefty penalty, which I did without hesitation. I found a small, functional apartment across town. My nest egg, once destined for a life with her, was now my seed capital, my lifeline. I had a business plan I'd been refining for years. A boutique marketing consultancy focused on a specific type of data analytics my old company was too slow to adopt. It was my passion. I just never had the courage to risk a comfortable life to pursue it. Nicole's words, intended to break me, had instead set me free. "You're nothing without me." It was the most liberating challenge I'd ever received. Update 1. Hey Reddit, it's been 6 months since I detonated my life. It's been a grind, but things are taking shape. I named the business Apex Strategy, and it's finally getting traction. After 3 months of burning through my savings, I landed my first decent client. The results I delivered for them led to 2 strong referrals. Word of mouth is everything when you're a new name. I'm not profitable enough to hire employees, but I'm working with 2 excellent freelance contractors on a regular basis. I'm still working 16-hour days, but it's the good kind of exhaustion that comes from building something that is unequivocally yours. The silence from Nicole's camp lasted about a month. Then the harassment began. First, the angry voicemails from her mother, filled with accusations of humiliation and selfishness. Then came the concerned messages from our mutual friends, all reading from the same script about how I destroyed poor, heartbroken Nicole. They always managed to weave in how disappointed Gregory was and how it might affect my reputation. I politely told them my decision was final and blocked their numbers. The most entitled move came from Gregory. One day, a formal-looking envelope arrived. I was confused about how he'd gotten my address until I realized with a jolt that in my haste to sever ties, I'd forgotten we had a joint streaming bundle subscription billed to a card of mine, but with her family's address as the secondary contact. They must have seen my address update and passed it along. Petty and invasive. Inside the envelope was an invoice for $75,000, itemizing his career mentorship. It was so absurd, I laughed. My lawyer, a sharp woman I'd hired for business incorporation, drafted a cease and desist letter that was a masterclass in professional scorn. We haven't heard from him directly since. Their next tactic was more venomous. A coordinated smear campaign. A handful of 1-star reviews appeared online for Apex Strategy, all from anonymous profiles. They claimed I was a fraud, that I stole my business model from my previous employer. It was a gut punch. For a new business built on reputation, it was terrifying. But my small client base rallied. They posted detailed, authentic reviews about the results I'd delivered, effectively burying the fake ones. One client even wrote a long post on LinkedIn endorsing my work, which brought in a new wave of inquiries. Their loyalty was humbling. On a personal level, I've met someone. Her name is Samantha, 30F, a freelance graphic designer I met at a coffee shop that I use as my third space. She's smart, fiercely independent, and has an incredible sense of humor. I was cautious at first, but she's nothing like Nicole. She celebrates my wins without a hint of jealousy or ownership. When I told her the whole story, she just shook her head and said, "Wow, her loss is definitely your gain." She ended up redesigning my logo and website, and her work is brilliant. I'm not fully healed. There are days the bitterness is still there, but then I look at the work I'm doing, I have coffee with Samantha, and I know I made the right call. I'm not just surviving, I'm building a life I can actually be proud of. Final update. Alright Reddit, it's been a year. This is the final chapter. What happened last week was the kind of closure you only see in movies. First, an update on the business. Apex Strategy is stable and growing. It's not a massive agency yet, but it's real. I've hired 2 full-time employees, a campaign manager and a junior analyst. We still work with our trusted freelance contractors. Last month, we moved out of my apartment and into a modest but professional office space. We're profitable, respected in our niche, and on a solid growth trajectory. The smear campaign is a distant memory. The attacks from Nicole's side got more desperate. About 4 months ago, one of my biggest clients told me they'd been approached by another small agency. This agency offered to do the same work for a 30% discount and dropped hints that Apex was a risky one-man show about to go under. My client, a savvy entrepreneur, found the timing and the messaging suspicious. She did some digging and found out the agency's founder was a cousin of Gregory's. It was a transparent, cowardly attempt to sabotage me through a proxy. My client was so disgusted she signed a longer-term, more lucrative contract with me on the spot. And Samantha? The woman I met in the coffee shop? You can see where this is going from the title. We got married 2 months ago. A simple, beautiful ceremony with our closest family and friends. It was everything the wedding with Nicole wouldn't have been. Authentic, joyful, and about us, not about appearances. Samantha is my partner in every way. We're a team. Now for last Tuesday, I was in a meeting with my small team when my assistant, Amy, buzzed me. "Brandon, there's a woman here named Nicole. She's insisting she needs to speak with you. She doesn't have an appointment." My blood ran cold. Samantha was in the office that day, having a coffee in our small kitchenette. I excused myself from the meeting, walked over to her, and said, "You are not going to believe who is in our lobby." She saw my expression, stood up, and took my hand. "Okay," she said, her voice firm. "Let's go." We walked out together. And there she was. Nicole looked deflated. Her expensive clothes were wrinkled, her makeup was smudged, and she had the haunted look of someone running on fumes. Her eyes locked on me, and then darted to Samantha's hand holding mine. A flicker of pure venom crossed her face before she masked it with a performance of desperation. "Brandon," she whispered, as if the word hurt her. She wasn't crying, but was clearly trying to muster up tears. "I needed to talk to you. I thought maybe we could help each other." That phrasing, transactional, not emotional, told me everything. "There's nothing for us to talk about, Nicole," I said, my voice even. "Please," she begged, her voice cracking. "My life, it's a mess. You were right to be worried about the money. It's all gone. My dad, he was fired. They're doing an investigation at his old company, something about financial misconduct. They took his pension, his stock options, everything. We had to sell the house. I have nothing." So there it was. Gregory's empire was a house of cards, built on embezzlement, and it had finally collapsed. "And you came here?" I asked, incredulous. "What do you want from me?" The desperation in her eyes hardened into that familiar, ugly entitlement. "This is your fault," she hissed, her voice rising. "If you had just married me, none of this would have happened. My father was under immense pressure, and you abandoned us. You humiliated him. You were supposed to be part of the family. You owe us." I was speechless for a second. The sheer audacity. That I, the person she belittled and discarded, was now responsible for the consequences of her father's crimes. "Let me get this straight," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "You're standing here, in the office of the business I built after you told me I was nothing in front of my wife, and you're blaming me because your father is a thief who got caught?" The word wife finally landed. She stared at Samantha with raw hatred. "Wife? You replaced me? That fast?" Samantha, who had been a silent pillar of strength beside me, finally spoke. Her voice wasn't loud, but it cut through the tension. "He didn't replace a partner, Nicole, because you never were one. He found one. He built this business, and he built a new life with someone who actually sees him." Nicole stood there, sputtering, the last of her manipulative power gone. All that was left was the raw, pathetic rage of someone who has lost everything and can only blame others. 1 year ago, she had stood in our expensive apartment, draped in luxury, and told me I was nothing. Today, she stood defeated in my world, a world I built with my own 2 hands. I felt nothing, no anger, no pity, not even satisfaction, just emptiness. She was a ghost from a life that no longer belonged to me. "Amy," I said, speaking to my assistant, "please show Miss Albright out. Make sure she understands she is not welcome back." My assistant nodded and moved forward, and Nicole, looking utterly broken, allowed herself to be guided out. The door clicked shut behind her, and the silence she left was profound. I turned to Samantha, who wrapped her arms around me. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for a year. "Yeah," I said, pulling her close. "I think I am now." We went back to my office. I looked at my wife, my team, and the thriving business around me. "We'll see," I had told her. And we did.